Greetings in the name of Jah Rastafari. Wow, here we are in the last week of March, 100 days into the Trump campaign, and what a bumpy road it's been, especially living here in Canada. It's been crazy. And you'll notice as a thumbnail I've used a picture of the Ark of the Covenant, which is in play. The Illuminati card, the Ark of the Covenant, is now in play. By the way, there's another card in the Illuminati deck called the Canada card. And the player that gains that card gets 10 extra points to be the super green superpower. And that's what's at stake here in Canada, but I don't want to get too far down that rat hole. However, I will revisit the Ark of the Covenant thing. Here's what happened. Of all of these documents that have been unleashed on us lately, the JFK files and now the hurricane, we are seeing a lot of stuff come out. And we found out that the CIA used remote viewing in 1988 to locate the Ark of the Covenant. Why that's interesting is because in Mar-a-Lago there is an Ark of the Covenant, or there was, and James O'Keefe was in there to meet Trump at one time and said that's not a replica, that's the real thing. And other people have said, and so now it's completely possible. But in the Illuminati game, it's a really important card. It's called an artifact, a unique artifact, it says on it. And what we need is God anyway to help and step in, so it's great to see the Ark of the Covenant played. And by the way, Ras Tafari is two words, Ras Tafari. And that was Haile Selassie, which I believe was the actual bloodline of the people that carried the Ark from Jerusalem to Ethiopia. Yep, they were all Rastafari. That's what I believe. And by the way, their Bible is original. It is 88 books rather than our 66. They believe in the old calendar, and some say that the Orthodox Ethiopian religion is the closest to the actual written words of the original Bible authors. So, on to Juan 107. Jah bless 107. He sent us a letter last night, I'm a member of the group off of Gum Road. Anyone that bought Kid by the side of the road, and now there are millions of us, you should be included on a list that received this all-important letter that I'm about to share with you. And it starts, Juan here. Next few weeks, critical, and your participation is needed. And here's what he says. Imagine you're in the new F-47 fighter jet that President Trump just announced. Trump is in the pilot seat and you are riding shotgun as the WSO, Weapons Systems Officer. Do you see yourself in position? Good, imagine this. The WSO is affectionately referred to by pilots as the Wizzo. As Wizzo, you serve the critical role of being the second pair of eyes and hands needed to efficiently and effectively operate the jet. I know a little bit about the way hot rodders and pilots think and operate. Trump, a hot rodder at heart, owns and has owned exotic cars his whole life. He's also been taking the American public to UFC fights, conditioning us to think and strategize like a professional fighter. And it's working. A couple of weeks ago, I went with a group of friends, this is Juan speaking by the way, to the UFC fight in Las Vegas. FBI Director Kash Patel and Mel Gibson were also there, watching from the front row seats. Did you know the Director Patel has suggested that FBI personnel get training by UFC fighters in order to sharpen their policing and investigative skills? Pretty cool. When President Trump was shot, I believe his immediate reaction stemmed from years of mental exercises and training. With adrenaline rushing and neurons pulsing through his brain, in the heat of the moment, he collected himself, inquired about the safety of those around him, then just pumped his fist and yelled, "Fight, fight, fight," which has now become famous. Now, back to you, The Wizzo backing up our fighter-in-chief in the cockpit of our new 6th generation fighter jet. Watch what happens next. From the hour that he won the election on November the 5th to the inauguration, not a moment was wasted, not a second. President Trump did not ask for or accept any federal money or assistance while working through the transition. Why? It is possible that he would have been spied on, just as he was before in his first term. So he just paid for it all himself and did it himself without government helping. Instead, he conducted the preparations and personnel interviews at his own expense in his own facilities, and guess what happened? On January 20, 2025, he caught them all by surprise. Hundreds of executive orders and executive actions were immediately signed, with hundreds more in the weeks ahead. It's like he took some bottled up UFC fighter adrenaline from that day, and he was shot with the hot rodder mindset, then took in some deep breaths to oxygenate his mind, said a quick prayer. He's acknowledged in this inaugural address he believes that God saved his life so he could make America great again. I believe that too. And then slipped into his F-47 pilot seat, throttled up the engine, and began to short roll across the tarmac. And don't forget, he wanted you right there with him as the Wizzo. And we're off. Faster than a blink, we're experiencing full power takeoff with wheels now retracting, and the pilot-in-chief has rotated, nearly going vertical, accelerating out of altitude at military, not civilian heights. At this speed, you, the Wizzo, you better hold on and don't forget to breathe. Steady and deep. Don't look down. There's no moment to spare. Fight on. As we level out in the weeks ahead, we will all see the much bigger picture. So high you'll see the curve of the earth below and put to rest the flat earthers' storytime confusion. Your gaze will be frozen while contemplating how rapidly we're moving from the past into the future and how we conduct our lives. In all combat scenarios, the most critical aspect is one's actions, is learning to anticipate what could happen, to mentally contemplate actions and reactions. That's how we, the Wizzos, should all be operating now. As an example, just a couple of days ago, President Trump signed an executive order concerning voter rolls for any upcoming federal elections. As a result, every state will have to debate and fight out whether to apply the same conditions to their statewide elections. States supervise the elections, which are run county by county. This is only an opening shot. President Trump has several more executive orders coming related to the manner in which we vote and how they are counted. The biggest one will likely be last, arriving sometime late summer, requiring hand count paper ballots for all elections for federal offices. The states and counties will then have to decide if they want to use electronic voting systems or in-state voting, or adopt the new federal system with smaller precincts, 1,500 people maximum in each precinct, and hand count paper ballots that are counted where they're cast. So that's really critical, and this is a really huge push. And by the way, that's primarily what the weekend in Las Vegas that I met with Juan and his team, the Silver Matador weekend and the Gold weekend, he had a panel that were expert, including, well, I'll mention Mark Cook in a minute, but it was all about how to run an election that can't be rigged or stolen. States like Nevada have huge central vote counting facilities, which will not be used in 2026 for any federal votes for federal offices. That's Juan's prediction, by the way. This is going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight. Do you know who's going to win? Take a guess. You want to make a calculated guess? Watch and see. Money is the mother's milk of politics. President Trump has been cutting off the milk supply to thousands of hidden slush funds, feeding the deep state's coffers overtly and covertly. The cuts will keep on coming. What does that mean for us wizzos, you ask? As we stay sharp and focused, it's our job to help the pilot-in-chief, supporting his efforts and coherently communicating and explaining the logic and needs of his action to our fellow Americans. So we really got to get behind this vote thing. It's so critical. It's so important. Soon the conversation you will be having amongst your peers will be Russia, Russia, Russia. Again, imagine that. The Russian hoax will result in shocking arrests of the traitors who threw out boat anchors slowing and hampering President Trump's first term in office. Remember how horrible that was? Russia, Russia, Russia. It never stopped. Next, we will be in the 2020 election collusion by many of the same people, operating both inside and outside the US borders. It's almost unfathomable in magnitude since these crimes were conducted at a nation-state level. That's a really important fact right there. China and Cuba led the operations with the assistance of several lesser countries, and therefore the election interference constituted an internationally recognized act of war. This was an act of war stealing 2020, as you're going to find out, and there's no stopping what's coming. As this detail loads into public consciousness and the actual perpetrators now in protective custody on US soil, see, the people from Dominion in Serbia, they blew the whistle, but there was 150 family members that have been put into protective custody since Trump took office. So this is all about the globalist managers. That's right, even China is a puppet of the powerful globalist cartel. Therefore, fight on. They cannot back down readily, and the main event with US versus China is still a ways off. It's inevitable. Juan's mentioned it many times. But US is going to have a head-on with China at some point in the future, because neither of them are backing down. Meanwhile, Trump's actions are drilling holes in the foundation of the deep state's operations. Remember my talking about the Esther flip? Our Esther moment is coming as the cross braces and their support systems are steadily being removed in preparation for Trump to push the big red button. Oh, please push that button. This boomerang of a perfect day will be when the whole house of cards start tumbling down. Remember our movie, The Called, Makings for a Perfect Day? Enjoy the show. Meanwhile, people continue to ask me how to invest and prepare for the future. The answer is going to be different for everyone, and I encourage you to be in prayer mode about all your specific situations. I personally prefer having silver coin on hand in my possession over gold because it's more widely accepted in smaller values. So, and I always carry one on me. This one happens to be a Trump coin. But yeah, silver's the way to go. Get your hands on as many silver coins as you possibly can. So what he explains here in this next part is that the correct way to state this is actually neither gold nor silver are changing value. Fiat paper and even digital fiat cryptos will be worth less. So it will take a lot more of either paper or digital to buy gold and silver. So it's not gold and silver going up. Get that in your mind. Trump's role in this part of America's history is to manage the Chapter 13 bankruptcy of America, where assets are reorganized in order to pay off the debt, which is actually owed to the American people. The debt is to the people, not to the government. This often includes removing or discharging unrealistic, unauthorized, or unlawful present and future obligations. A Chapter 13 bankruptcy is different than a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. In Chapter 7 bankruptcy, the assets are sold off and the money distributed to the debtors. In other words, Trump is not presiding over the shutting down and dismantling of America, but rather the reorganization of it. Praise the Lord. And thank you, Juan O'Savin. Remember, we forward in this generation triumphantly.